good. I'm gonna myself and then go back to where I can see everyone's pretty faces. There we go. Okay. So, hi everybody. Welcome back. What we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna kind of have I'm going to start it with two sections and then they kind of can change later. The first one we're going to do is family signs. Then the next one we're going to do is like occupations and jobs. And the reason we kind of have this go together is because overall it's people. So like our whole topic tonight is going to be people. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, like I said, we're going to do families. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch base on kind of our basic family structures. And then you guys can ask me for more specific kinds of how you would describe this relative and so forth. Okay. So the first sign we're going to do is the sign for family. So the sign for family is you're going to have two F's. They're going to start together and you're going to go in a circle to where your pinkies touch. Family, family. If I'm not sure if I don't think I've mentioned this before yet, but this motion, like this circular motion, like this, kind of represents any type of group. Okay. That's why that family, the F for family and having that circle motion, it's talking about a group of people. And so I always like to say that with this only because you will see later on, when we talk about like teams and groups, that you will notice that same sort of motion. Not necessarily the hand shape, but the motion is there. Okay. The next one we have is we're going to do actually man and woman now. Bear with me. And the reason I say this is because they go in with mom and dad. So the first one we're going to do is the sign for man. And the sign for man is going to be a 5. You're going to start on your forehead and come to your chest. Man. Okay. So man. And then father or dad is just going to be that 5 on your forehead. Dad. Okay. So man is forehead to chest. Dad is just up here. Dad. Mm-hmm. All right. Our next one is going to be woman. And woman's going to have that same 5. But instead of starting on your forehead, you're going to start on your chin. And you're going to go from your chin to your chest. Woman. Woman. Mm-hmm. Which then leads us to mom, which is mom. So very shorthand, dad, mom. Okay. All right. And I will say this, some people, I have seen them sign it a little bit differently. And I always like to just kind of throw this out there, not necessarily to be like, well, I'm teaching you this, but like as an exposure. Some people will do, I've seen where they'll have like this A, they'll start here and go man, woman. I have seen that before. I don't see it as often. I typically just see man, woman, but I do like to throw that out there. So in case if you saw someone doing that, you would know, oh, they're still talking about a man, we're still talking about a woman. Okay. Then we have parents. Parents is very simple. It is dad and mom or mom and dad, whichever way you do it. I tend to voice mom and dad, but then sign dad and mom. That's why I had to say it could go either way because I will flip it even through English and ASL. So parents. Okay. The next one we're going to do is boy and girl. This will tie into son and daughter. Okay. So the first one we're going to do is boy. Boy is going to be boy. The best thing I can say is think about holding like the bill of a baseball hat. Boy. Okay. And then girl. Girl's going to have our thumb and it's going to go down, basically go down our jawline. Girl. Girl. Mm-hmm. So boy, girl. All right. I don't know if y'all noticed there is starting to be a trend here. And the trend is that if you're talking about any kind of male family member, it's all going to be up here around your brain. Any female family members are going to be right here around your chin. That is the kind of helpful little tidbit just to think of. Excuse me. So if you're trying to remember, okay, like the sign mom and dad, they're the same, but in different locations. helpful tip is knowing women are going to be down here while men are going to be up here. Okay. So if we were going to do, well, I always skip this one and I need to add it here because it's how we do son and daughter. Baby. Baby is just baby, holding a baby. Okay, baby. So if you were going to do son and daughter, you are going to basically combine boy and baby, girl and baby. So son is boy, baby. And then daughter is girl, baby. And you kind of can make it almost go in one fluid motion. So it's not like you're doing boy, baby. It's boy. I mean, son. Oops. You kind of do that one pinch of boy and go into the baby. All right. Same thing for girl, girl, baby. Yes.
Okay, just this is maybe a naive question, but when you're doing the sign for baby, are you cradling it, like moving left to right, or is it just the like hand placement down here?
It can be kind of a preference, and there's no silly questions. That's why I like to leave it open. I'm like, ask whatever question. I promise there is no stupid question in this class. And so it kind of is sort of can be a preference. Like for
Mm.
example, if I was talking kind of fast and I was talking about like so and so son or something like that, and I go son, like the conversation is just we still got to keep going. The focus is not on, oh, you have a son. Like it's just like, okay, I saw a son today and he had blah 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 blah. That
Okay.
simple fast motion. So it kind of just depends on the person. You don't have to rock it back and forth like an actual baby.
All
Um,
right.
just kind of preference. So,
Okay, thank you.
mhm. Okay.
Okay, and I'm gonna jump in right here because this is where I like to tell about the time after like 2 years of classes that I realized that ASL is just like any other language, and your signing gets more fluid. And because Jillian was telling a story and she was not thinking about signing, but she was signing, and I saw her say good morning, and it went really fast. And that's when I was like, wait a minute. So it's so obvious. It would be like if I was in France and I was like, ooh, la, like loud and going slow. And yeah, it was obvious when Jillian was doing it. I was like, yeah, she's real fluid with it. And, so sometimes I think in this class, it feels like we're learning like individual signs, but it I mean it does again it is important for people to know what it looks like in the like out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a little bit more fluid or a lot more fluid depending.
Oh yeah, because I know exactly what you're talking about. You were sick last class, and I actually mentioned this because I said, Miss Katie called me out on this before, and I will never forget. And it was when we were talking about good morning, and I showed him good morning, and then I said there is a simpler version of good morning where it's faster. And I said, yeah, you called me out on that because I did it one time in just signing, and I didn't even realize. And you're like, hold on, now wait a minute.
I know, because here I am looking like a tourist in ASL land. I was like, wait a minute. But
Listen,
no, it totally makes sense,
oh
like
yeah.
when you think about it. Yeah.
I've done the exact same thing. I'm telling you, even when I was in my internship, like I was telling them last week about how that good morning thing, I kept feeling like I had to go good morning every time with both hands. And my hands were full of textbooks and I was being that awkward, like just like moving around and realizing I can just shorthand this because it is smoother. And so more practice with ASL, it does come to that. And there are times where I think when I'm talking about like boy and then I go baby, where I'm like, okay, but if I was doing it, I wouldn't sit here and go boy, baby. I would have it more like smoother and fluid where I do boy, baby, like pinch once and go down. But there are times where it does call for being like a boy, oh baby. Like it's kind of like think about like how we change the tone of our voice for things. Same thing kind of goes into ASL. You'll do that repetitive motion or that like the slightly differences. That's kind of how you add that in ASL. It's really fun to play with and kind of learn
Or
and
you do look sarcastic if you don't make a face. Like you do look like you're being really like kind of
yes.
rude.
Yes, like, that can actually make it really can. I've seen it before where I've had someone asking me a question and they never moved their eyebrows, and I stared at them and I was like, "You added the question word." Like, I genuinely got stumped and I said, "Are you asking me a question?" And they're like, "Yes." And I was like, "Oh." And I had to respond. So, like, it can do that. So it is good to have facial expressions.
So I got a question.
Mhm.
All right, so I always thought that like when you say I got a son, you go boy, baby, but let's say the son is 10 years old, you know, and you go, I always thought that you go boy, and then like you put like a flat hand like next to you, and like, he's, and then you say 10. Instead of saying boy, baby, you just go boy, and then kind of like tap him on his head next to you. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you can do that. A lot of times with this boy baby motion, even though you're not necessarily talking about like if my mom were to talk about like, oh, I have two daughters and two sons, she would still do that boy and girl baby, even though we are adults. And that's where you can do that kind of motion of like the sign for like adults or older is this. Like you were saying, that height thing, you can do this. It kind of that's a little bit more where you get a little bit more into the height differences and expressing like the ages of kids. I don't think we actually did the sign for age when we did time. So we can add that. I'll add that real quick. How you would decide sign. Wow, kept trying to say design, decide everything. How you would assign age, because even though you're still doing that baby kind of sign, once you tell them their age, it doesn't really like change it from thinking of a brand new infant baby to a like 26-year-old. I've had conversations with even people who are talking about their adult children, and they still say my daughter, my son. But you can, and especially if your child is near you, you can be like my son, and like kind of patting him on the head, like this is my child as well. If you have those visual cues, you can use them. I know it's like, wow, you call my child a visual cue, but it's hard that it's like, hey, you're standing next to me. This is my son. So yes. Um, Sorry, I saw you unmute. I was gonna check and see. Do you have
Yeah,
more?
that's about what I'm asking. I mean, like, I have, 3 daughters, so like all, they said, you have any kids? And I would say, no, I have three, and then it's like three, and then I'd be like, girl, and then one, and then I'd do pat them on the head 3 different times, 3 different locations, 3 different girls. But that's what I was taught though, but I know what I've seen the sign that you do too, so, and that works too, so. I've seen that one too, but because I have 3 girls and they're older, I guess that's the reason why I was taught the way I was.
And again, like, I think I've said with ASL is that it can vary in kind of different ways. And, sometimes it comes down to which way is your preference of how you would want to sign and descriptions and things like that. That's a little bit more in that descriptors kind of aspect. And so, yeah, it very much can vary, especially with different. I always like to say ASL can be in kind of like, if you think about it, you take ASL 1, then you take ASL 2, ASL 3. Same thing with Spanish, any of those. You learn things in Spanish 1 that slightly change in Spanish 2, or even they change kind of big in Spanish 3, and it's like the building steps kind of thing like that.
Makes sense. Okay, I appreciate it.
Hmm. But I'm glad you mentioned that because we do need, excuse me, sorry, I am so thirsty. I keep drinking my water.
Did you ever
Yes.
check? Okay.
Yes, I was gonna say that's actually perfect that you said that because I want to show the sign for age and also like how you would do like how old are you? Okay, so for age is gonna start kind of with the C. You're on your chin and you go age. Okay, so if you're gonna ask someone how old they were, you would go age you. You could do like age how, but really I've seen it more age where it's like you're pulling on your chin. Age you. How old are you? Age. And I like to add this one with age because I do think it's fun. The sign for old. Okay. And the reason I do it, you'll see why. Old is old. Old. I imagine you are pulling on Dumbledore's beard or Gandalf's beard because it is that long because they are that old. That is my visual with that. And I think it's the funniest thing with that. So old. Old. Now, if you were going to say how old you were, I'm gonna just throw random numbers. These are not my actual ages. I felt like I need to preface this, but I'm gonna throw random numbers. If I was gonna say like I was age 16, the way I would do is I'd pull like that same motion of age, and then I'd go up to 16. Age 16. Age 16. Okay, so it's like you pull down and then you sign that number. You could separate them and do the age 16. But this is that like kind of fluid motion where it's like age 16. Excuse me, or age 35. Age 35. So you would just add the number after signing age. Okay? Does that good with everyone? I know I kind of throw those quickly, but I didn't want to forget those. Those are helpful as well, especially if someone's randomly showing you this motion. You're like, what are you talking about? And it does look similar to orange. I do want to preface that. If you've seen the colors video, the difference is orange is more up here and does not go down any. It stays in front of your face, orange. Whereas age is like you're literally grabbing your chin and coming down. Think about starting a little goatee, okay? That's the visual of it. It's like you are pulling on your goatee just a little bit. You have a little bit of hair here. Age. Okay? All right. Now, let's go back to our family. So we had son and daughter. The next time we're going to do is the sign for children. And so the sign for children is going to, obviously it's not this high up. It's typically lower, kind of about like rib cage height, but I'm doing it up here because you can't see it. Is children. So you pat the heads. Children, children, children. Okay. The next one we have is kids. So the sign for kids is it's going to be like you have, I always like to say the rock and roll sign, but you're going to put your pointer finger under your nose. Kids. Kids. Okay. I've seen them interchange kids versus children. If that is a big difference for you in the sense of how you would sign it, go for it. Make sure. But if not, if you only can remember one of them, it's not the end of the world. Again, you can still sign because still in this concept of it, kids and children are still, they're the same. They're talking about young adults. So if you did it, did this and you're like, oh, I meant to say kids, it's not going to be like it changes the conversation and the subject. Okay. All right. The next two we have are our sisters and our brothers. So for brother, we'll do brother first. You're going to have two L's in both hands. You're going to turn them sideways. And I do this every time. Typically, your non-dominant thumb, you do want to have that resting. Okay. So if you're left-handed, it's your right. If you're right-handed, it's your left. Okay. Your dominant thumb, still pointing up, you're going to bring it to your forehead like this. Okay. And then you're going to put it on top. Brother, brother, brother. And you want to make sure you're like going right on top of your hand. Brother, brother. Okay. Then for sister, same positioning, but now it's your chin. Sister, sister. And it's like the base of like where my thumb is on my chin. Sister, sister, sister. You do want to make sure with this one, you do touch your chin or get as close as possible to it. And the reason for that is because if you're farther away from it like this means correct, like right, correct. So you do want to make sure you're at your chin and bringing it down. Sister, sister. Okay. So siblings would be brother, sister. Okay. Excuse me. All right. I know I've been throwing a lot at y'all. Let's finish out the families, then we'll go back through them all. Okay. So the next two we have our aunt and uncle. And so for our uncle, I keep wanting to flip it. I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. Oh no, it didn't work. Okay, sorry. It's the pollen. It's so bad. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze, and if I don't, it like makes me like sit here for a minute, and then my eye tries to water. And I was like, please sneeze. It was not happening. Luck was not in my cards right now. Anyways, uncle. Uncle's gonna be a U, and you're gonna have it near the side of your head, and you're gonna go in a circular motion. Uncle. Uncle. Then we have aunt. Aunt is going to be an A, and it's going to be at the side of your mouth. Aunt. Aunt. Okay. So uncle, aunt. Like I said, if you remember when I mentioned in the beginning, anything that's going to do with a female is going to be down here. Anything that deals with a male is going to be up here. Okay. Then our last few, we have cousins. Now, for cousins, there are the three ways you can do it: male cousin, female cousin, and if you're not, it's not really a gender specific, or if you're talking about multiple cousins, is this one, okay? So the first one we're going to do is a male cousin. It's going to be a C, and you're going to bring it to the side of your head again where the males usually are. So cousin. If you're talking about a female cousin, it's going to be down here by your chin, cousin. All right. And then the third one, if you're talking about, this one is if you're just having a general conversation and the focus is not that you have a cousin, like a male or female cousin, it's just you're talking about your cousin, or it can be used to talk about multiple cousins that are both boy and girl. And it's cousins. It's like right in the middle. So it's like my ear is kind of right between them, cousin. Okay. All right. Our last two are grandpa and grandma. Okay. Grandpa or grandfather, you're going to start like our father, and then you're going to bounce it out. Grandfather, grandfather, grandfather. Excuse me. And then grandmother, same thing, but on your chin. So mom, grandmother, grandmother. And I'm doing about 2 bounces. Grandmother, grandmother. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for family signs as of right now? We will go back through them, I promise. I'm just seeing if we have any questions. Okay, perfect. And then after we go back through them, what I'll do is I'll help you how you would list and describe your family, as in like like how many are in your family. Okay. So let's go back. Sorry, I was reading, someone said, "Oh, no worries, you are all good." I love that someone sent a message saying that they're about to have to jump off. That's why I suddenly turned here and I was staring at the screen. Promise I'm not crazy. It was just reading a message that was directed to me. Okay. So let's go back. We had the sign for family. So family, family. Then we had man, man, woman, woman. Dad, mom. And you do want to make sure. Oh, the sun was in the way. And so I was like, is her thumb on her chin? Your thumb is on your chin. I see it now. Yes. It looked like you had your face completely here. And I was going to be like, oh, put your thumb out. We need our thumbs. But we're good. The sun was just shining. Mom. And then we had parents. So dad, mom, or mom, dad, whichever. Then we had boy, boy. And then we had girl, girl. Girl. We had baby, baby. Then we had son, boy, baby. And then daughter, girl, baby. Then we had children, children, children. Kids, kids. So it's like the rock and roll under your nose. Kids. Sister. Well, oops, let me do it slow. Two L's sideways, non-dominant thumb down. Sister, sister. And then brother, brother. Uncle, uncle. Aunt, aunt. Cousins. So boy cousin, girl cousin, and just the generic cousin. Then grandpa, dad, out, out. And grandma, mom, out, out. Okay. So how are we feeling on family signs as of right now? Are there any that you guys are curious of? How you would describe anything like that? Okay, awesome. All right, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to explain how you would list your family. I'm also going to talk about the term listing in general, because there are a few things that are key notes that are important for it. So when you are listing something, typically you probably see me do it. I use my hand, I'll make the motion like this, and I'll point to this. And what I'm doing is I'm listing. So like, for example, when we were talking at the beginning of class and I said we had 2 topics and I did the 2 sideways out here like this. That's how you can that's how we start a list sort of deal. What's really important about listing is that whatever you put in these positions need to stay. Meaning, if I were talking about, okay, we have the 2, we have the family signs and then the occupations. I cannot say this is now occupations and this is family, like flipping it without clarifying it. And the reason for that is because this is kind of like having your, what's the word? Oh man, I know the sign. I don't know the English word. I hate when this happens. It's how I can go back to it, basically. Like I can go back to my place. It's like a save, I think.
A
I cannot.
placeholder.
There it is. Thank you. I was sitting here, like, I know what this is, and I cannot think of the English word of it. Yes, it's a placeholder. So it does help you, especially if you're having a conversation and you're talking about, for example, talking about your day and what you did that day, and you're trying to list out everything that you've done. You want to keep that placeholder of what you did, so that keeps up with everything that you've done. And as well as if you wanted to go back to something, the person you're talking to will be able to remember what you were talking about because of that placeholder. Okay. Now, the way this applies with families is if you were talking about the amount of family members you have, you are going to be like my family, and then you're going to assign the number. So, like, my family is 5. So I would do my family 5. And I do this turn sideways because that is telling them that I'm about to list off who is in my family. Okay. So I always start with my dad and go down. I've had this pattern since I was like 17. So my age, my number, my placeholders are very much stayed the same. So what I would do is I'll be like, first, my dad. So I'll point to this and go dad. And then point to this second one and go my mom. Now, I point to this one and I go me. And the reason I do this is because I'm the oldest. So I kind of have in my mindset the sibling list is in not biological, chronological order. There's the word. Chronological order. That's just how I've always placed them. Okay. So I'd be like me. And then my brother and sister that are younger, they are twins. So there are 2 ways I kind of do it. It just kind of depends. The first one is talking about as I would go sister, like I do sister here. And then here I'd go brother. Okay. Now, I know you saw I was flipping my hands like this. And the reason is because you can shorthand it. It's not proper. So do not be like, oh my gosh, well, Jillian said it was this. I'm like, no, no, no. You still would have to, the proper way is still doing brother, sister. But you can to like shorten it and make it kind of move faster is go brother, sister, like where I've just tapped and go to the fingers. That is a little bit more, not lazy, but that shorthand motion. You still would rather do this. So like sister, brother. Now with that, I would do that. And then I typically would put them together like this and go twins. But that's for me. The 2, you go on the one side of your cheek and on the other side, twins. This is for twins. So I put them together to show that these 2 are the twins of the family, and that they are the same age. Okay. But again, that's how my family is, and that's how I typically would explain it. But everyone's families are different. And so depending on your family, if you were talking about you're a family of 3, you would want to do 3. 4, and so forth. If you are a family of 6 or more, you would want to do like Miss Katie. Miss Katie's got a big family. I always use her family as a perfect example. And so if I was going like my family, I would be 7. I would start with a 7 like this and then open out. Okay. Start my listing of who's here. And then you can go here and here where you add that 2 for the 7, or you can do 6, 7. It kind of is a preference. I've seen this one where they start to list it on here, like adding the other hands here. Like, well, oh, we didn't do husband and wife. I'll add those. Sorry, not married. Don't think about that often. I'm still stuck on like my kid growing up family mindset. I need to add those. We will. But if I was going to be like my husband, then me, my daughter, these 3 being daughters, and then I know I'm confusing y'all. I need to stop. Let me slow this down. I'm throwing too much of how many ways you can change it up. That's why. If you were talking about, like, for example, Miss Katie, she's got 3 daughters back to back to back. Okay. You can tap at the 3 like this and go daughters to show like these are all 3 daughters. All right. And then I'd be like, why added 7? Why did I sign 7 for years? I don't know. Why did I do that? Sorry, there's only 6 of them. I add an extra family member. Surprise. And then I'd be like son for this. Okay. So, but you can do individual signs. I know I threw a lot and I do apologize for throwing that. I was in that mindset of how I would naturally sign it in ASL, which would be a little bit different only because there are ways I can change it, but that's confusing to you guys. And I know that. So this is how, like I said, back on this is the listing. You would just start off however you want. I typically recommend going in chronological order, just because it does help be a placeholder, and especially like when I did this for my siblings, when I'm talking about my siblings, or like if you're talking about your kids, doing oldest to youngest, because that helps it visually make more sense. Like, when you start like as a couple and it's just the 2 of y'all and then you have a child, they're the 3rd member of your family, that mindset, if that makes sense. So I would try to go chronological, but it's not the end of the world if you didn't. Okay. Now, let me add real quick here, husband and wife, because I keep forgetting that and I need to put that on there so I don't forget that. So the interesting thing with husband and wife is I have seen 2 signs used both equally. And it kind of just depends on the person. And so it is interesting. And I'm going to give you guys both. And this one I'm actually going to sign, and it's not just an exposure. I'm going to sign both of them. Okay. The first one is going to start with a 5, slightly bent. You're going to bring it to your forehead. This is for husband. Your non-dominant is palm up, and you're going to go husband, 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 husband. The other way I've seen husband is a pointer finger and then open up to the hand. So husband, husband. I have seen both interchange multiple times. The other sign that can be confusing is the sign for believe, like believe, I believe, belief. And that can be, honestly, it's this. And so it flips. I've seen some people say, well, this is my husband, this is my, or I've seen people where they'll go, this is my husband, this is my belief. It just depends on the person. I have seen that. And this was an interesting conversation I had with 3 different people who are deaf, and been born and raised deaf. And I asked them all 3, I said, well, what is your sign difference between husband and belief? And they all 3 basically had different answers. And I was like, good to know. Got it. So, I think for sure, one thing that does help is context does come into play. You're not going to say, well, my belief cooked dinner last night. Pretty much it's kind of catching on, okay, my husband cooked dinner last night, or different things like that. So context will really help. And if all else fails and you're not sure, you can always ask to clarify. You meaning belief, like spell it, or do you mean husband? You can add that for clarification. All right. The next one is wife. Wife is going to be the exact same thing. It's but on your chin. So wife, wife, or wife with the pointer finger. Wife, wife. I kind of leave this on up to being kind of a preference, whichever you would prefer. Just be aware that belief can also be there, and it kind of changes depending on the person. Okay? All right. Let's now go over some occupations and job signs. I'll try to do just kind of, I have a list of kind of a list of some. I'm going to try to cap it so we're not going too long. And that way I can leave it open for any specific job titles that you'd be curious of. So, but I am going to preface this a little bit real quick before we start. The more specific a job title or a job title is, the less likely it may have a sign. Very specific ones can be very long finger spelling and complicated. So just a preference and heads up in case you're like, well, tell me what's the sign for anesthesiologist? And I tell you, you have to spell it. I do not want you to be like Jillian. What? I'm just warning you now. A lot of the ones in the medical field, like half signs, half don't. So just be prepared. Okay. Just a little heads up there. Okay. So the first time we're going to do is the sign for work or job. Okay. And so the sign for work is going to be 2 S's. You're going to have your non-dominant flat down. Your dominant is going to come and tap on it. Work. Work. And it's like you're tapping it on the base of your hand. Work. Work. This also is not only the sign for like my work, what I do, my job. It is also for like, what are you working on? So if you were to be like, we've not done what do. We'll do that later. We were not going to talk about that one. We'll come back to it. But if you were going to ask like someone what they're working on, work. Homework is also around with this too. It's usually adding the sign for home and then work. But so it's just the overall work sign. Okay. The next time we're going to use the sign for person. And the reason for this, I will explain once we show you. There are 2 ways you can sign person. The first one is more ASL, and it is you just open like flat hands like this and you go person, person, person. The other one is with a P. It's like those P's, really K's because they're not sticking up down, but like this. And you go person, person. This one is more of that English base. So either way you can sign it. I typically do person, but some people will do person as well. Okay. So the reason we have to do this one is because what's really cool with occupations is that a lot of times it is the verb of the word with this person added. For example, teacher. Okay, this is a good example. Teacher is you have the sign for teach, and then that ER, that that we have is this person sign. Okay, so for teacher, it would be teach, which is 2 flat hands, like hand puppets. You're going to come to the side of your head and you're going to bounce it back and forth. Teach. Okay. Oh, excuse me. So it's teach, person, teach, person. Teach, person. I always think these are nice because you basically get 2 for 1. In signs, you get a sign for the verb, and then you also get a sign for how you would describe that, like the teacher occupation. All right. The next one we have is librarian. And so for this one, you're going to do library, which is an L, and you're going to go in a circular motion, library, and then add person. So library, person. Library, person. Okay. The next one we have is an artist. So this one's going to be art in person. So art is going to be a pinky, and you're going to go, let me turn it sideways so you can see. This is like my easel. Okay. So I'm at my pinky and I'm going to zigzag across art, art, art. So artist, art person, art person. Okay. The next one we have is a lawyer. And so for lawyer, we're going to do law person. All right. So for law, you're non-dominant sideways. You're going to have your dominant in an L. And what you're going to do is I'm going to turn it a little bit sideways so you can see. You're going to tap this L top, bottom. Law. So this is law. So law, person, lawyer, lawyer. This is very hard to go through and say English at the same time that I'm voicing it English while signing at the same time at ASL, because I want to say law person, but then lawyer. If you catch me flip-flopping a few times, just be prepared. It happens every time I do this one. Okay. The next one we have is a chef or a cook. This one I have seen some people do without the sign for person, but it doesn't ever hurt to just add that person there. So you're going to do the sign for cook. So you're going to have your non-dominant palm up. Your dominant is going to be flat on top, and you're going to flip it back and forth. Cook, cook. Okay, cook. And I always think about flipping pancakes. That's my best represent visual with it is cook. So cook, and then chef, you could do flip, cook, person, cook, person. And then the more specific you want to get on that, the more I would recommend fingerspelling just to add that clarification, with being like a chef or things like that. Because I know sometimes they can be like the head chef, there's a lot of complications with that. Again, with any kind of job. At the moment, because this is just ASL 1, I would just recommend starting with basic of the job and then adding like fingerspelling to help clarify the leveling of that job. Okay. The next one we have is engineer. And this one's always fun because you would think it's going to be engine and then person. It is not. This one actually is going to have the sign for measure and then add person. Okay. So measure is going to be 2 Y's. You have your thumbs together and you're going to bounce your pinky of your dominant hand. Yeah. Measure person. Measure person. Okay. That is for engineer. All right. Then we have scientist. Now this one, ooh, there we go. My list keeps zooming out, and if I don't have that list, I will lose my place so fast. So for scientist, the way you're gonna do is you're gonna do the sign for science. So the sign for science is 2 A's, and you're going to almost like you're pouring in beakers, okay? I have seen some people do the S's for science. That is more that English. This is more that ASL science, okay? So scientist, science person, science person, okay? What's really fun with this one is it is more English when I say this, but it is fun, is for things like being a chemist, being like working with chemistry or biology. It's the same motion, but changing the letter. So chemistry, the C's, like you're pouring in the C beakers, chemist, being a chemist person. All good. Another person was saying they had to leave. That's why I'm not just randomly responding to nobody talking. I promise. There is another direct message. So then for biologists, bees, the bees going in person. Again, that is more English with signing that C. But it is a nice little helpful tidbit if you did want to clarify specifically and you wanted to use that. Okay. Let's see, what's our next one? All right. The next one we have is a server or a waiter. And so what you're going to do is the sign for serve. And so the sign for serve is 2 palms up, and you're going to go back and forth. Serve. So server or waiter would be serve person. Serve person. This also can be the sign for services. I thought I would just add that in here because I think that's helpful, a little tidbit, because serve services. Then we have a manager. So manage, interestingly enough, I don't know why I think this is funny. I do. The sign for manage is also the sign for control. Okay. So it's like you're saying controller while also saying manager. I don't know why that makes me laugh. I mean, it makes sense. As a manager, you are in control, but it makes me giggle every time. So for manage, you're going to have two X's. You're going to turn them sideways and do that same thing we just did with serve, but and now it's just our X's. So manage or control. So manager will be manage person. Manage person. Okay? All right. The next one we have is going to be a businessman or businesswoman. And typically all you do is you sign the sign for business. So business will be two B's. You have your non-dominant sideways and you'll have your B go back and forth. Business, business, business. So if you were going to talk about being a businessman or a businesswoman, you would just do business. Well, you could do business person, or you could do businessman or businesswoman. Either way, those will work. Okay. Then we have our therapist. I think this one's always an interesting one to add. And so for therapist, you're going to have a T. You have your non-dominant palm up, and you're going to tap that T on top. Therapy. This is therapy. Okay. So therapist would be therapy person. Therapy person. This is actually a good time to add help because we have not done the sign for help before. The sign for help is help. Help. It's a thumbs up. Same thing like we did with therapy, but now it's a thumbs up. Help. Help. Now, I'm going to add this here real quick because I do think it is important when we know about the sign for help, how you would apply it in a sentence, because that does change a bit. Help is one of those directional signs. And what I mean by directional is is that instead of you having to go, you help me, which you can do, there is a smoother way you can do it. And the way you would do it is how you would directionally start your help sign. So let's say if I was going to say me help you, all right? The way I would start is I'd have that help close to me already, and I'm going to bring it towards you or towards the person I'm helping. So help you. I am helping you. You can also do this when asking if someone needs help is help. And you put those eyebrows up and just bring it towards them like, help, can I help you? If you were going to ask someone to help you, like help me, you're going to start away with that help and bring it towards yourself. Help me. Help me. Okay. There's a couple of signs that will use this directional sign where it will move itself to what needs to be said, to the who's it talking about. Same thing as if you're talking about saying to this person, I pretend like this person right here wants to help this one, or I'm telling them you need to help her. Okay. You would start with whoever you want to be the helper, go help and bring it towards that person. Help. Help her. That sort of thing. Okay. So that's the sign with help. And if it gets too confusing and you're concerned about, I don't want to confuse, you can obviously just do me help you or you help me. Same thing will still get it. The same question or sentence will still get the point across. Okay. All right. Let's do a few more and then I'll stop and leave it open. The next one I have is doctor. Now, interesting with doctors, you don't actually have to add the sign for person to it. This is its own sign. All right. So you're going to have your non-dominant palm up. Your dominant is going to have that bent shape again. And you're going to tap the base of your palm. Doctor. 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 I have seen some people use the D here for doctor. But again, that is more English than ASL. So doctor. The next one I have is nurse. Nurse is going to be two fingers, and you're going to do the exact same thing. Nurse, nurse. And the visual of this is like, basically, it's like they're checking your pulse. You know, they check your pulse to check your vitals, everything like that. Nurse, doctor, same thing. Okay. Then let's see. All right. The next one I have is the sign for president. And so for the sign for president is you're going to have these C's You're gonna have them on the side of your head right here, and you're going to pull them out into S's, okay? You'll see what I mean in a minute. So you go president, president, president. And this can mean for any type of president, president of a company, president of a business, president of the United States, president of whatever, president. Even if you're talking about being a president of your honor society, like you can just add.
President is the most whack sign. It makes me think of Bullwinkle, like Rocky and Bullwinkle. It's
I mean, I know. What I'm trying to
and
remember
like
how.
compared to VP, it's like, really?
Yes.
I mean, it's fine.
Because I was going to say vice president is literally just VP, vice president. I was like, yeah. So I remember when teaching this the first time, and everyone's like, president, this is huge. There's so much with this. And I went, vice president, VP. And everyone's like, wait. So we went from having really big to
It
VP.
actually does perfectly summarize the situation, but you know.
Exactly. So president, I just think about horns. I don't know what it is, like bull horns, like how it comes out like a longhorn. And I'm trying to remember why. I remember my ASL teacher when we were learning this, and she was giving us, she gives what I try to give to y'all, where it's just like different things to help kind of help it stick and remember why it's there, blah, 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 all of that. And I cannot remember for the life of me what she had that was her best thing to help remember that one. But I just remember being like, what? No. So, president, vice president. Okay. The next one we have like two more, and then will stop. Okay. The next one we have is military/army. They are the same sign. And so what it is, it's going to be two A's, and you're going to have your dominant go up top here, while your dominant comes like right below. It's like right on your ribs. I know it's hard to tell, but it's military, or it's right below there. And the visual for this is that it's like holding these straps. Okay, military. And that is a more generalized one. Depending on who you talk to, there are different signs for different areas of the military, like the Navy and the Marines and the Air Forces. I do not see them as often. I typically fingerspell them, but that does not mean that may not have signs, especially in areas where they are very much more prominent or things like that. I have seen a few here and there, but they're not ones that I see enough that I really sign myself. I just fingerspell a lot of it. Okay. Then the last one we have is astronaut, because I personally think this one's a fun sign. I don't think we talked about cities and signs. Did we talk about cities have name signs? I can't remember. But anyways, there's one that I'll explain in a minute, but I just think the sign for rocket's really fun. Okay. So the sign for rocket is going to be palm, non-dominant sideways. Your dominant is in this R shape. You're going to start at the base and you go rocket, rocket. So it's like the motion of the rocket shooting up. So rocket. If you're talking about being an astronaut, you would do rocket person. Rocket person. I personally just love that one. Rocket Man by Elton John comes in my head every time. I was like, I wonder if anyone else thinks of Rocket Man, because I almost signed Rocket Man just to be fun. Because that's what I think of every time. And then I just have a nice little vibe because I like that song. So, but okay. Are there any job job titles that you guys are curious of? How would you sign? How would you explain? Anything like that?
Whenever, I don't know who raised their hand first, but I was.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I did not hear you.
Oh, so insurance, estimator, or and adjuster. Those are the three that I don't know. Insurance, estimator, and adjuster.
Okay. So for insurance, the way I've seen insurance is it's an I, and you go like I, like you bounce it back and forth like insurance. But because that is a little bit more, I mean, because let's see, I'm trying to think of how some of the time, sorry, cannot talk. Because I'm trying to figure out how like a being a sentence is like, I probably would say work insurance. Like I would do work insurance. And then estimator, are you talking about working for like a pipe company and things like that, where you do estimating for measurements and things like that?
Yeah, so like me, I'm a insurance adjuster, but insurance estimator, because I'm technically an estimator. So estimator or adjuster or and or both.
Okay. All right. The reason I had asked to clarify is because my dad his job title is technically an estimator. But whenever I talk about his job, I don't always say the sign for estimator because estimator's like guesser. The sign, technically that sign would be estimate person. That's guesser. That's being like someone who guesses. And I'm like, that's technically not what estimator means and what it's saying. So I had to ask just for specifics on that. I would probably do insurance. And then so the sign for adjust is adjust. And it's like you have those X's like we did with manage, but you go up and down. And it's kind of because you're doing like adjusting, changing. So I would be like insurance adjuster, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to add the word estimator, honestly, I would fingerspell that one just because that one is one that could easily be misunderstood if you were doing like estimator, like guesser. I feel like that one would cause more confusion. So I would just fingerspell like insurance adjuster / estimator. I would add that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other signs you guys can think of or jobs that you can think of?
How do you say photographer?
Ooh, oh my gosh, sorry. I love having new ones, but I also like it's like the like insurance adjuster. I was like, how would I sign that? But photographer is a simple one. That's why I was like, oh my gosh, I know this one easily. So photographer is photographer, like photograph, like taking a picture. So be photographer, photographer.
That's fine. Thank
If you want, I was gonna say also if you wanted to say professional photographer, you could or like a formal more things because I know that changes. You can add the sign for professional fancy, and it's this 5, and you brush up on the center of your chest. So formal photographer. I think that one's just a fun to add there. Just makes it sound a little bit like, look at me, I'm all hoity-toity. I'm a photographer. Had to add that.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any others? A motorcyclist. Oh, okay. Okay. I love that. I have to think because the sign for motorcycle is motorcycle. It's motorcycle. So motorcycle. Um, I would, because you could do motorcycle person, but I'm gonna tell you now, if you sign that to someone, they're gonna ask questions. They're gonna be like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're a motorcycle person? I can see them being all question, more because they're curious than anything. Especially because with being a motorcyclist, that's not a common job you see or thing you do. And so I could see them asking lots of questions. I would go for it. I'd still be like, I'm a motorcyclist. I like make that motion of you ride all the time. Oh, they're gonna ask you 1,000 questions. I'm gonna tell you now. Because I can tell you for a fact that if I if my kids were nearby, they'd be asking you 1,000 questions. Like, what kind of motorcycle? What does it look like? What color is it? Oh, their first question would be, what color is your motorcycle? Pink? You have a pink one? Oh my gosh, you're right. Oh, I can see it now. Oh, I can already see my kids. Oh my gosh, they would love it. Oh, that's so cool. And I'm out of water. I should have known. I talk so much, get water. I'm always thirsty. All right. Okay. So it is 6:30. Are there any last minute questions you guys have before we go? I'm just gonna see anything like that. Okay. If you do end up having questions that you think of after class, you're more than welcome to email Miss Katie and then she will let me know or we can save them for next week. I think next week we're gonna start our animal signs. And then after that will be our food signs. So be prepared for week 6, the 6th week class, to eat a snack beforehand. I just always like to warn everybody because you get hungry. I get hungry. So just a little heads up. We're coming close into the food time. So But alrighty, well, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of y'all's week. And I will see you guys all next Tuesday. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.